Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and it is a good morning. So I'm here at home in Auckland, and it's a stunning and lovely day. So wherever this finds you, both in New Zealand or around the world, we have people around the world watching this. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good night, whatever the right one is. So welcome along, and welcome to this Family First production. Called Solid Ground. If you are new and wondering what this is, Solid Ground is a pun. It's talking about a good cup of coffee, a good solid ground, if you will, but more importantly, it's about discussing the topics of the day, social, cultural, political, artistic even, from a good foundation, from a solid ground, which is very much, founded in good, traditional conservative values. And so, look, welcome along. We're going to be talking, we're going to be talking a range of issues this morning. You are obviously watching this across various platforms. If you want to comment, because this is live, if you want to comment, if you want to have your say or suggest some thoughts on what I'm saying, just jump onto the Family First Facebook page. That's the best place to make comments, or rather to get them direct to me. If you're on YouTube, if you're on my own social media page, if you're on Twitter, wherever you're watching this, again, welcome. But if you want to comment and have me see that comment right in front of me as we chat, get onto that, as I say, the Family First Facebook page. Look, there's much to discuss today. There is every week. We're up to, I think, about episode 16, and one of the reasons I mentioned that is let me know if this day and time works for you. You know, let's be clear, it's not going to work for everyone, and it'll be a bit like herding cats. But I'd be interested to know if people like the morning time. Would you prefer it to be more in the evening? So you might know that Bob and I, my colleague Bob McCoskrie, we do a political playback on a Thursday evening about 5 o'clock. So, you know, is an evening show better for you guys than a morning? Or are, in fact, excuse me, I've had a tickle in my throat for about 2 weeks. Do morning shows work? Do evening shows work? Just, let me know. It'd be good to hear what you think. So a range of topics today. We've got two reviews happening within the political realm, one around euthanasia, one on transgenderism. So I want to highlight those again because they're both timely and topical. We've got a situation coming out of the UK where a mum's in trouble because of some do-gooders for letting her 15-year-old son travel. We'll share a little bit about that. A little bit about what's coming out of Australia. I touched on it very briefly last week, this tickle versus giggle case, and why that is so, wrong, misguided, but also a warning for here in New Zealand. And then we're going to talk a little bit around puberty blockers, Elon Musk, Facebook, and the South African haka. So there's lots to talk about, and whether I can fit it all in the next 25 minutes, there's a challenge. There's a challenge. So firstly, good morning to the likes of Rosie. Lovely to have you there in, gorgeous Taupo. Charmaine suggesting that 5 o'clock is better. So thank you for that, Charmaine. I've got a few different comments and suggestions coming through. You'll excuse again my voice, as I say. I've had a tickle in my throat, and then last night I was in Hamilton talking to a wonderful group of people down there. We were talking fatherhood, family, faith and life and politics. All of that squeezed into 30 or so minutes and questions. But I think talking for all that time has done my throat. And so first and foremost, though, a big hello to all those guys in Hamilton. I know a lot of them actually do watch these Family First productions. And hello too to the good people up in Warkworth. A few days earlier, I'd headed up there with my Family First hat on to talk to them about a range of topics. And again, I'm always struck both by the people who were there at the talk, but also as I was leaving and bumped into some other people, how many are actually watching these shows. So hello to all of you. And perhaps that's an encouragement to people to consider, invite Family First to come and talk to your group. Places like Queenstown are always lovely. No money. Well, I'm only half kidding, but you get what I mean. So, by the way, good morning. I've got Ian saying hello. Lovely to have you back, Ian. Thank you. And I've got Amanda. Here's a name I recognise. So it's interesting, actually. I get to recognise over time quite a number of names. I don't always click to where people are, but the lovely wire wrapper. Haven't actually been there for a while, which is a bit sad. This is a comment. I've jumped straight to comments from Christine or Brendan or both. Later's better, but as I say, it's like herding cats. My wonderful colleague, the boss, the founder, the CEO, is just telling us all that he's had his beach house in Mount Maunganui. Actually, no, in all seriousness, keep Bob and family in mind, as one of their loved ones is not so well. I hope that's all right to say, Bob. But he's down there caring for someone at the moment. And as you all know, when the boss is away, the mice will play, so to speak. So anyway, look, a few things to keep in mind. The first is this little public consultation on euthanasia. I talked about this last week. I talked about it the week before. I'll keep talking about it because actually it's a fundamentally important issue. One of the big issues, certainly in Family First, we are, what would I say? Oh yes, so I've been distracted. Bob's wit has come to the fore. As I was saying to you guys earlier, we welcome invites to come and speak. He suggests Hawaii is very good. Yes, I second that. And just because I was saying hello to people, Chris says good morning. He's in Napier. And Amanda says, had trouble finding us this morning. Yeah, I don't know why either. I can always have a look afterwards. Oh, excuse me. Dear me, coughing into my microphone. Anyway, why I'm sharing about euthanasia, as I say, there's a review underway. You have a chance to submit or give your thoughts by the end of this month. I think the 28th. I'll have to double check that. But you have a couple of weeks, although I always suggest you do it today. Like any government review, lots and lots of questions to basically want you, all puns intended, to sort of lose the will to live. Really important, though, for you as viewers to understand there's always a general set of comments you can leave at the end. In other words, if you don't want to go through each and every question, you don't have to. You can just actually put 2 or 3 sentences together explaining why you think this is a bad idea. And it is a bad idea, by the way. There's a massive push. And actually, David Seymour, the architect of the Euthanasia Act, and ironically now in charge of the review, the fox in the hen house, if you will, said the soft or quiet piece out loud the other day that he expects this review to, if you will, find in his favour, to say that it has to be expanded. More and more people should be included, that it should be offered more, that the 6-month limit at the moment needs to go. You name it. So as I say, he said the quiet bit out loud. So we need you to submit. Family First has put some materials together. There's a bit of a primer. It's a bit of a primer. So, you know, why I say that is you don't need to have to, don't have to quote us verbatim. It's there to stimulate your thought. And in recent days, just to give you a little bit of context, and I'm relying actually, and thanks to Bob and Arla from the team, as I say, I was driving last night to Hamilton and being a good responsible citizen, I was not on my laptop and driving because the government's quietly released the latest report on euthanasia in New Zealand. And again, it's a government report, so about 30 of the 40 pages are complete and utter waffle. They're designed actually people to hide the facts. And I say that knowing full well how governments work. It's why you need groups like Family First, because actually we're the ones who will go and do the reading for you and actually pull out the gems. And so, here's just an illustration of why euthanasia is dangerous and why we continue to push it against it. I know when I was in Parliament, I warned that this would expand. It would get ever larger. And even with the restraints somewhat in place at the moment, we've seen an 11% increase since the last report, so that's only a year ago, an 11% increase of people asking for euthanasia, and overall 5% more seeking or being euthanized. And you might go, 5% doesn't sound like much. But since this law was passed in 2021, we're now having hundreds and hundreds of New Zealanders die, and it's an increase every year. Every year it increases, and that shouldn't be a surprise to any of us Because if you look overseas to the likes of Canada, or Oregon, wherever, they're always going up. And so even before, excuse me, even before they look to expand who's eligible, it's already increasing. Get this, most of them actually are white Europeans, which is, of course, a tautology. I mention that because if you've ever heard me speak about euthanasia, I talk about the 5 W's. It's the people who are predominantly wanting euthanasia, and they fit into the 5 W's. I won't do it as a test. And by the way, I do see some of the questions coming through. I'll get to those soon. But the 5 W's, and it's somewhat echoed in who is seeking euthanasia. It's white, women, wealthy, worried, and well. And in many ways, the report is beginning to indicate that, because actually the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people seeking euthanasia are white or European. I think only 4% are Māori. So I don't have the report right in front of me. It's hard to look in the camera and read a report at the same time. Lots of women. They don't, I have to be fair, take reports on wealth, but I'll put good money that they are. And as I say, it's not actually filled with people with major disabilities or neurological conditions. They are not actually a big proportion of the numbers. So I think personally that begins to indicate again, you've got the worried well who are very supportive of this. And the final point, just as you are maybe considering to be part of this review, of the hundreds of people euthanized, in this latest report, only 1%, so you've heard me right, only 1% needed or sought or were given a psychiatric or a psychological, assessment. Now, let that just sink in for a moment, because you're told by proponents, there's lots of safeguards in place. Now, if you've been around death and dying, and I've been around a lot of it, most people who are dying, most people who have grievous, irreversible, terrible conditions, are depressed, at least for part of the time. Or they're under the weather. I don't mean just physically. It's a highly emotional, highly charged time. So the idea that these people seeking euthanasia, that 1% or fewer need any sort of psychological assessment, is a whopping red light, because you'd expect it to be more. Now, I don't personally think it needs to be 100%. Part of me would like that, but it's not arguing for 100%. And to be honest with you guys, I'm not even sure exactly what the percentage should be, but it's not 1%. The idea that of every 100 people seeking and being euthanized, that only one person needs some sort of psychological assessment shows you just how badly this is failing. As I say, if you've been in hospitals, if you've cared for loved ones who are dying, if you've been in hospices, you know that people are actually under enormous stress at this time. So long and short, they're killing people, saying they consent, but I doubt actually a lot of them are. That's the fundamental crux. People are not making probably the calm, rational decisions. So you need to submit on this, and I've talked too long as usual. Get me started on life issues, and it's all go. So review on that. I said closes 26 there, it says, even at the bottom. Very convenient for me. Very convenient for me. So there's that. Now I had have Ian asking a question here. I'll just jump off my topics. Why is she allowed to stay in Parliament? So fundamentally, guys, you need to understand that she was elected, even as a list MP. I know. She was elected to Parliament. And actually, I think it should be difficult to remove MPs, even someone like her, who's literally turned up and done nothing. But you can, I think you might be able to hear my slight hesitation. Even though I don't think she should be in Parliament at one level, I don't think you want to make it easy to remove MPs, because we know what society's like currently and the trajectory it's going. I mean, just think about discussions around free speech and whether you're allowed to bring your faith into Parliament. I mean, God, even think of some of the experiences I went through, being told you're not meant to have views on certain topics. You don't want to empower political parties, political leaders, or others to be able to move MPs out, because I can tell you, they will. Most political leaders, doesn't matter if they're left or right, they just don't want trouble. They just want their agenda. And if you're an MP, look, I'll be honest, like myself, who was always questioning, prodding, pushing, we're a nuisance to leadership. They don't always like that. And so if you give them an opportunity to move people on, that's a problem. So sorry, a bit of a long answer, Ian. But I don't think she should be there. I want to be clear about that. But I don't think we should just be pushing MPs out. And in terms of the process, it's called waka jumping. In terms of waka jumping, the Greens are struggling to deploy it for reasons we don't fully understand. There was a court hearing last week. So basically the Greens were going to get together as a political party. They were going to vote to say get rid of her, and that would start a process. But they pulled back from that at the last moment, and some are suggesting, I better stress the word some are suggesting that Darlene has some dirt on the Green leadership. I honestly don't know, but it is strange because I would have thought that the Green Party pretty much held all the cards. So yeah, yep. Jumping back to euthanasia quickly, Amanda says the system doesn't give people confidence. Well, no, and I think I'm just going to look at my phone again. Oh yeah, that's right. I was just checking something that Bob had sent me. He noted in the current report, and whether this plays into what you're raising, Amanda, only 1 in 4 people who requested euthanasia, only 1 in 4, or 25%, because I can do math. No, only 1 in 4 was seeking or had palliative care. Again, that shows you just how, a lack of access. But palliative care is amazing. It doesn't always get it right. I mean, no medicine does. But, if you are actually in 6 months of dying, you should be getting palliative care. And yet 1 in 4 were. 3 in 4 were not. Again, that's a massive red flag. Good comment around the Greens there. The more silly they look. Yeah, look, it's actually very damaging to the Greens at one level. But I'd also note people that she's not changing the polls a lot. I think what happens when you end up in these smaller, I was going to say fringe parties. That's possibly not quite true of the Greens, but their people are very zealous in their support. And so, when you see the polls sort of sitting at sort of 10 to 12% for the Greens, that's their base. And look, to be fair, you look at most of the other political parties, clear that New Zealand First really has about, on a good day, 6%, on an average day, 4% support. The National Party is still sitting at something like 38%. I mean, that's just over its core support. I'd say 33% of the population is sort of, if you will, pretty strong blue voters. So the fact that they're polling at 38 just says something. Labor's sort of on its base as well. So this is a funny thing of our current political situation, that actually a lot of the sorry, you won't be able to hear this, but I'm looking out towards my driveway, and one of those Japanese trucks have turned up for my neighbour, but it's got the voice when it reverses. I don't know if you heard, how you hear beep beep, and then there's a voice in Japanese, I assume, telling people to watch out. So as I'm speaking to you, all I'm hearing is a very tinny digital Japanese voice. All right. I'm all over the place, as is usual, and as you good people knew last night in Hamilton, I was, when I say that, all over the place, in a good way. Other reviews to be aware of is this one. So, I need to get rid of that message. The Law Commission is looking into what sounds at one level appropriate to protect those who are transgender, non-binary, and so forth. Let's be clear, discrimination, being nasty to people isn't appropriate, never is. But this is a very bad idea. The idea being that we have to put specific legislation in place to say that transgender, those who are non-binary, cannot be discriminated against. And that leads into two problems. One, and so Family First, the likes of the Free Speech Union and others, saying, well, hold on a moment. If someone uses the wrong pronouns or chooses to actually reflect biological reality, are they going to be discriminating against someone? To be fair, the Law Commission is telling us they don't think that's going to be the case because myself, Bob and Ala from Family First, we actually had a private meeting with the Law Commission, which kudos to them for making the time. It was good to sit down and have a chat. Family First is, an important think tank, lobby group into this space. A lot of time, effort and research is undertaken by Family First, so we don't just opine. But why it's incredibly important that we make sure we don't end up with specific protections, because I would make the argument, and Family First will too, there's already provisions to protect people. What this is trying to do is, in effect, give special rights to this group of people so that they are beyond any critique or criticism. It's why Labour, before they were going out of government, tried to actually pass a new blasphemy law, particularly for religious groups. They wanted, again, an equivalent of this, but protections for, I would argue, some religious groups that, you weren't again to critique them, which is bad, by the way. But why it's not a good idea is this case. I don't know if you've followed this. I think I briefly touched on it last week. I've actually got Sal Grover coming back on in a week or two on my Family Matters podcast. She and I just teeing up a time. But long and short, a woman called Sal, this is her here from a previous podcast. She's obviously the one on the right or on the left, depending on what your screen is doing. So long and short, she's a woman. She set up a woman's only app where women could come online, if you will, safely to talk about life. And then this guy, who identifies as a woman and got his birth certificate changed, said, well, no, that's discrimination. You can't do that. I might be a biological man, but I identify as a woman. Let me on. And poor old Sal here, well, she lost the case because the absurdity of Australian law, courtesy of Julia Gillard, who always made a big thing about being a woman, put into the Australia Sex Discrimination Act that actually you can't discriminate according to gender identity. And so what you've now seen, and it's a reason why New Zealand doesn't need, I'm trying to find that little piece, doesn't need this, is because we're going to end up in the same situation. Because long and short, guys, if we end up putting gender discrimination or transgender or non-binary discrimination into our human rights, it will trump sex-based rights. And predominantly, it will trump sex-based rights for women. And just as what's happened to Sal Grover, to her Giggle app, and effectively to all women's spaces in Australia, it just goes out the door. Sex, if you will, becomes meaningless. Gender identity trumps everything. So it doesn't particularly affect me at one level. I'm a middle-aged man. But I can tell you, if you are a woman and you enjoy having your woman-only spaces, be that from the dramatic, such as women's refuges, to facts that you can have your own toilets or your own sports teams, if this stuff goes through, you can kiss them all goodbye, is the long and the short. So you have actually until this Thursday, to submit your thoughts. So please do so. And again, Family First has done a little bit of a resource on this. You can find it on our website. If you're not on our mailing list, please do so. You can obviously comment here and we can send you some information. Basically, a bit like the euthanasia one, we put down our thoughts to help you. Because really important, I don't know about yourselves, a lot of people I come across, and certainly found this even in my time in Parliament, a lot of people know that they don't like something, but they don't always have the reasons. And that's one of the things that Family First tries to do. And it is serious because of this case. Granted, it's a couple of weeks old now. But this is a woman who, and she's a woman, real woman, biological, chromosomal biological woman. She was a UK presenter who was critiquing. Remember the Algerian and Taiwanese boxer, the guys, chromosomal guys who won who won medals at the Olympics because they are men. I think they can hit 2.6 times harder. Long and short, she was commenting. Laura was making comments and saying they're not actually women. They shouldn't be competing. Well, just to show you how kind and loving the diversity and inclusion and equity crowd are, is they started threatening her and her unborn child. So, this is the madness that we are dealing with. And so expect to find a lot more aggression in this space. Speaking of the UK as well, this is where the woke madness is going. Now, we can have a little bit of a debate, but you might recognise Kirsty. She's part of that location. If you're in sort of home and garden stuff, long and short, she let her son at 15 go travelling with a friend. And then someone decided to dob her into police, and the next minute there are police at her door grilling her of why she allowed her son to go travelling. So I suppose there's sort of two thoughts here, and I know someone, I'm just looking at the notes here, someone had mentioned about it. I've lost it now. I've lost it. I think it was from Rosie. But long and short, how extraordinary is this? Now, first and foremost, some of us, or some of you might go, you know what, actually letting your child at 15 go travelling is it's a bit too young. And actually that's perfectly acceptable. I'm not here to judge whether the right call or not. I don't think Rachel and I would let our 15, well, we don't have a 15-year-old now, but wouldn't have let them go at that age. But, Kirsty has made her choice, went with a friend and so on. But what's fascinating to me is there's some sort of snitch who, because Kirsty, I think, had tweeted about this and how proud she was and how the son was having a great trip. Some other person in the UK decided to snitch on her and have the police come on round. Yeah, I mean, A, it's ridiculous. B, those same snitches and people who are getting upset will be the same types of people who've got no problem with gender transitioning, an 8, 9, 10-year-old, starting to pump them full of toxins or trying to start medically mutilating them. So it's all a bit nuts. Plus, you've got the police coming around to talk to her about her son travelling, when the likes of the UK at the moment has a massive problem with grooming gangs of young women. In other words, men, often actually sadly a lot of Pakistanis, these massive grooming gangs, huge knife crime problems, and yet the UK police are chasing up this woman because she allowed her son to go travelling. It's amazing. It's just beyond. Anyway, it's beyond ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. Quickly too, as a couple of heads up, here it is too. Sort of keeping on that space. This is a tweet from Bob. So the spin-off. If you want to see the left of the left wing, go and read the spin-off. They are so completely biased. It is hilarious. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous, which is what makes it hilarious. Anyway, they did an article a few days ago going, well, where's all the new guidelines on puberty blockers? And basically, the spin-off, and it's corrupt. And I use that quite specifically. It's corrupt reporters are pushing all the same lies, that puberty blockers are fine, it stops young people doing stupid things, there's no harm whatsoever. So they were getting all very upset in their article that the Ministry of Health has not published updated guidelines since the Cass report came out. So you might recall that in the UK, Hilary Cass, a very well-respected doctor, has written a report saying, you know what, actually, there is no evidence of whether puberty blockers are working or not causing harm. There's just no evidence. Any supposed evidence is basically just trans lobbyists talking to one another. We actually know from exposed files, there's been leaks out of these transgender groups that shows that they know that there are problems, they just don't want to talk about it. There's evidence that the likes of puberty blockers are not irreversible, and there's lots of evidence too that actually, firstly, suicide ideation. So this is one of the big things that the likes of the spin-off and others try to lie to you about. Which is, oh my God, if we don't give puberty blockers to children, they'll go and kill themselves. Well, tragically, some do, but actually just as many do afterwards, if not more. And secondly, as Hilary Cass pointed out, it's actually a horrid argument. Because amongst other things, once you start children on these puberty blockers, it's not a choice. We've had our own detransitioners. Chloe Cole came to speak to the Family First Forum. It's a conveyor belt. It's just the first step towards the next decisions. In other words, once the likes of the spin-off and their other lackeys get these young children onto puberty blockers or support that move, it's just one step towards further interventions, which ultimately involves the mutilation of children. Let's call it for what it is. It is the mutilation of children, and let's be clear. Left-wing groups like the spin-off are very supportive of that sort of abuse. So Bob rightly points out, though, they're trying to cover their tracks. That the ministry is struggling to try and reconcile what is the most recent science. Well, actually, the science has already been there, but tried to be suppressed. So again, people who are for mutilating children and the use of puberty blockers have been very, very biased in their reporting. They've ignored a lot of the evidence. They're certainly ignoring what's happening around the world at the moment. So it doesn't matter if it's the Cass report, the fact that the UK, most of the Scandinavian countries have pulled the use of these blockers and other interventions. Our ministry's been donkey deep in it. Donkey deep in it. And so now they're struggling. They're struggling to try and justify why they did what they did. And as other people are pointing out, a lot of this stuff, particularly trans surgery of young people, is going to be one of the great medical scandals. Kevin's asking, are they permitted? Oh, yeah, New Zealand, we're donkey deep in it. In fact, I think, did I read, and I'm happy to be corrected, but New Zealand's usage is like 10 times higher than that of the UK. I mean, we have a small group of radicals here who seem to find a delight in what they do to children. And as they say, they're going to be involved in one of the great medical scandals. And it's just my hope that when this all unravels, I mean, obviously some poor young people are going to have their lives destroyed, but we need to hold those medical doctors, reporters and others strongly to account, because it's just absolutely horrid. Absolutely horrid. Last couple of thoughts, because as typical, I've run over time. I'm just going to put this up again from last time. I know I did that because it's a nice thing. Just a reminder, 24 weeks, this little baby boy was born. This was in New Zealand. I just think it was lovely. And then what's a small political point to go out on? I don't know if you saw this, but it sort of made me laugh a little bit, only a little bit. So this is a brewery, a microbrewery in New Zealand that was doing a beer series. And I've got some people going, oh my God, Simon's talking about beer on solid ground. It's not even 8:30. So they were doing a series on beer of great navigators. So they had, I think, the likes of Magellan and Cook and others, and they chose to include Kupe, the very famous Polynesian navigator. But there was a hoopla. Some various iwi groups and others, oh my God, they're appropriating that. So look, there was just a big yelling and screaming match at the brewery that they shouldn't have done this and that it's offensive and so forth. But why I'm putting it up is, yep, they're welcome to have that reaction. But you know what? I could guarantee, and this is how wokery works in this country, because the same people who are whinging at the moment that the beer companies should not have used Kupe would be the same people complaining had the brewery not done so. See, I bet you good money that had the brewery put out its 6 cans with 6 navigators and not included the likes of Kupe, they would have been complaining as well. See, this is the thing about wokes, or wokery. They're always upset, and they always find a reason to be upset. So as I say, had the brewery not put Kupe on, well, that would have been an affront to Māori, because he's a great navigator and he should have been included. Of course, the brewery did put him on, thinking it was probably, and I mean, I'm guessing their mindset, but they probably went, well, he's a navigator, just like Cook and Magellan and Abel Tasman and others. And they get upset about that. Oh, you've just taken our person. And it's like, oh, for heaven's sake. So look, there's a lot of people who are out there complaining, which, it is what it is. So last little thing I'm going to share, I just came across this today. I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's Lunig. He's a 76 or so year old cartoonist, actually an Australian, been very, very well respected. But actually he was pushing back against the excesses of the Dan Andrews government in Australia and Victoria in particular, and they cancelled him. I said an amazing cartoonist, but anyway, he shared this, and I just thought it's quite funny. So I'll just leave it there for a moment, but I just thought it was actually a very good cartoon and something slightly more positive to end on. Michael Ludwig. But yeah, I thought it was very, very funny. And amongst other things, I must say I find all these international days beyond a joke. I don't know about you, I don't really take much notice of any of them, really. Oh, by the way, and I'm obviously 3 days late, or 2 days late. A very happy Father's Day. I think that's different than an international day, but very happy Father's Day to everyone on Sunday. I hope, particularly to the dads, that they got pampered in a small way. So, guys, I'm going to wrap up there as usual. I'm going to put this one up because I just think it's funny. So, lots of other comments. I'll have to get to them. Rosie sums it up quite nicely to you. I think people do need to get a life. I think people sometimes take things far too seriously and other things not seriously enough. So, as I say, they're jumping up and down about coupe on a beer can. And yet, this new form of child abuse, which they call, gender-affirming care, is allowed. I mean, it's just, our priorities, I'd suggest, are wrong. But talking of priorities, there is so much that Family First does. I don't know how we stay awake. But in the media space, we run Straight Talk. So this was a Monday night live panel. So some of you I know tuned in last night as I was talking in Hamilton, so I couldn't be on. But that's hosted by Bob, and normally 4 wonderful guests talking all about the politics of the day. Bob does his Mick blog. You can obviously get that on all podcast platforms, but he does that most days, talking on topics that grab his attention. You've got Pulse Point. It's like a weekly summary. My colleague Tumby does it, sort of 4 to 5 of the big stories that often our mainstream media won't report. So we do, and we discuss it from, again, a good sort of conservative and foundation of faith viewpoint. I do usually a weekly podcast called Family Matters. This is from a few weeks back, but this week actually I've sat down with Dr. Paul Moon. We are talking about, did Māori seed sovereignty? And part of you might go, whoa, what's that got to do with Family First? But actually it does a little bit, because we've been conscious, a lot of these issues are discussed around the family dinner table and so forth. So I thought, right, let's go to the top. And I've got a lot of time for Paul. So we talk about that, so look out for that one. We have Political Playback. That's 5 o'clock live on a Thursday. Bob and I chew through the politics of the last week. So tune into that as well. Some of you will know I'm also on Reality Check Radio. I host a radio show every Friday morning from 10 till midday. So I'm working on my guests for this week. Last week I had a Tibetan MP and then an expert on Iran from one of the big think tanks in Washington, D.C. I also write on Substack. Again, this is a bit of an old one. I need to actually do a new screenshot. So if you go to substack.com and look up On Point, or you look up my name, you'll see that I write every week on various topics. And flattery is the best form of imitation. Bob McCroskey is now on Substack, people, so go and look him up as well after you've looked my name up, or look his up first. Bob is right. He's writing more than I do. I try to do once a week. He's doing 2 or 3. It's not a competition, people. Or is it? So look, there's so much to check out. And if you're unsure, jump onto the Family First website, obviously onto Family First's Facebook page, my Facebook page, any of our channels, YouTube, LinkedIn. We try to be everywhere we can. So guys, thank you for joining me this morning for this, another Solid Ground. Thank you for all who have been commenting, and particularly to those of you who have been commenting on, say, my Facebook page or LinkedIn or that. I will have a look over those in the coming hours. But in the meantime, guys, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I look forward to, might see some of you online, 5 o'clock Thursday, as we talk political playback. Otherwise, I'll see you again next Tuesday morning.